live.
Are we?
We're live.
Oh, yay. Okay, cool.
We've had so many lessons this morning before jumping on. One, it's Lucy, Terry's dog's adoption day. I don't know if that what that means. The only reason we're talking about dogs is that behind the scenes, oh, you got a
How
haircut,
could you
Lucy.
not love this face?
Yeah, I know. It's pretty. I'm like, I've got kids and a business and travel. I don't want animals, but my kids put together a whole presentation and sat us down, like worked on Canva for a week. And also they worked together, which is not a thing that happens in my house. So I don't know. They've got me. Like now I'm trying to talk them out of us getting like a Great Dane. I'm like,
Oh,
that's a horse. I said dog, and into a Lucy-sized dog. So I'm going to show them Lucy. Lucy's cute. I also learned that in Europe it's 999, not 991, not 911. I didn't know that. The reason I know that is Terry's doing a European tour. I'm going to be jumping to a couple of spots in about a month here. And she's already started to have an accent. We were just talking about how she's going to cut her hair into a Euro mullet, and she's picked up football, excuse me,
football.
all of a sudden. She's gone European. So mandatory viewing, Terry, this week is National Lampoon's European Vacation. That's probably the most accurate video I can think of for what it's going to be like in Europe. What the hell are we talking about today?
What the hell are we talking? Well, actually, speaking of Europe, this is
999.
999. So I had a client who's over in Ireland, and we had her call this week. Anyway, she said this would be a great thing to talk about because it happened occasionally. It does happen at studios, and she had a client who suffered a heart attack in the men's changing room after class. Now she was there. And she, knew what to do and to call and all that stuff. But I mean, I think most people know to call. However, she realized that not everybody might know all the information, like in terms of location. Like, I guarantee you, most of my staff could not tell you the actual physical address of my studio. They could tell people where it is, but not necessarily the location. And also thinking, I've been in studios, like particularly in New England, when they're in old mill buildings and they're on the second floor. You got to go up flight of stairs and down this corridor and turn right and then turn left. So what is your emergency policy? And, do you have an AFib? Is your staff CPR certified? So looking at what are your SOP? Yes, an SOP for what happens if there's an emergency at the studio. And then up to and including maybe ideally like something like a laminated sheet at the front desk. Because like, does your staff know the studio's phone number? Does the studio even
Yeah.
have a phone number? Like all that relevant information that or emergency responders might need to know, like specific detail. For instance, I know some studios, they have an exterior door with a code that, or they buzz people in. And like, so, all of those little details that when, in an emergency, as they say, seconds matter. So having all that stuff readily accessible, readily available, everybody knows where it is. And then this isn't what I remember. Did you guys do fire drills when you were in school?
Yep.
Yeah, it's like a fire. It's like every so often you need to have a drill, so that everybody knows what to do. You can't just train everybody once and then forget it, kind of thing. So that's sort of like our PSA, our public service announcement for today.
Yeah,
What,
just having a plan for it.
yeah, what's your safety policy?
I think, there are some places where by law you have just like fire code, you can only have so many people in the building.
Right.
By law, if you have a public place with more than X number of people going to be planned in it, someone has to have CPR. That is sometimes a thing. We always just looked at it like at the busiest times, we've got a 50-person room, like 50 in one room and 50 leaving and 50 coming and three times back to back to back. Like anything could happen. It has nothing to do with the product or anything. Like just someone could whatever. I don't even know what. Stub their toe real bad. Just
Stub their
how do
toe,
you have?
fall over, pass out,
Yep.
fall over. I don't know, fight. I mean, not that it could happen, but I mean, obviously we're not a bar or something like that. But fights
Yeah,
could
but
happen.
what
What
do
do
you
you
do? Yeah.
what do you do? What do you do? Kind of thing.
So having policy and a plan for it. And I think those are the obvious things. It's like I agree with the sheet, just right there by your front desk, by the phone or whatever, the quick sheet of like address, phone number, directions, instructions, just all done. And then I think the one empowering thing here that needs to be said is if you pay to get your team CPR trained properly and you do that yearly to keep them up and they actually practice it, like we're talking about once a year for a half day,
Yeah.
that's not only investing in them and beneficial for them, but like you might be surprised how strong that builds team bonding and confidence in your team to take action. If you
Yeah.
know that you can handle shit when it goes sideways, then like handling normal shit like selling an intro seems real easy.
Yeah.
So,
True. And a lot of times, like I know oftentimes like the Red Cross will have you some of it you don't even have to pay for. Like maybe the local fire department oftentimes have educators that will go out. You can sign up to have them come in and do CPR certification or even just basic first aid. You might have someone within your community that is can do CPR training or something like that. So I think that's like you said, Josh, that's a great idea. And then also just not only CPR, but like an evacuation plan, like an
yeah,
event of a fire or whatever, how you get
earthquake.
earthquake, how you get
Yep.
people out. And here's a good one. How do you account for people? What do you do? How do you make sure that everybody is out of the building? Which is another reason why it's a really good idea to make sure everybody's checked into class.
Hmm. Carol, did you guys do any special training for this? What you guys?
We did CPR training regularly. At one point, we did have an AED, and that was a whole, kind of question like, because there are people that have been sued for using them. So there's a little bit of like, just be aware of what you could be on the hook for. But yeah, we did CPR training. We take pictures and be like, we're kissing dummies today. Don't make us use this, kind of like a little post to the community like we know how to do these things but don't make us use it. And we had for where we live, we have tornado, you know
Yeah.
plans too, like if something's happening weather-wise, this is where everybody goes, that kind of thing. So yeah, I think it's good to review those things. I think that we probably didn't review them as often as we should have. Although I know that like when weather was popping or something like that, we would remind everyone, this is what we want to do. So yeah, we definitely thought of those things. I didn't think about having a sheet at the front desk that had our phone number and address and things like that. So I really like that as a plan, just to have it.
Yeah, I
Hmm.
You
think
don't know, like when you're in that situation, your brain also is like,
freezes.
yeah.
Well, and then the other thing is part and parcel to that is do you have an incident report process?
Yes.
Right. And so document not just something like unlike a 911 or a 999 emergency, but if there's a dispute, if someone like stubs you don't need to call 911, but if there's some type of, they cut themselves or stub their toe or slip or whatever it is that, or there's some type of dispute or altercation or something like that, to actually have an incident report that whoever's fills out with all the relevant details, like who was involved, the date, the time, all that stuff, just so you have a record of it should it become that necessary further down the road, or if there needs to be follow-up or something like that. So it's, you want to get that while it's fresh in people's minds, while it's fresh in the mind, not like 2 or 3 weeks later. And we had a situation where it was not kind of along this line. Someone was filing a workman's compensation claim and doing all this other stuff. And it's like I had to document, certain things. And it was really helpful
Hmm.
being able to go back and say, well, hey, this is what happened. So, I mean, we don't like to think about stuff like that. And it's your business, you got to protect yourself. So if you just have the mechanism in place to do it, and it's like, this is just what we do, standard SOP, standard operating procedure. So it's not a big deal. And I think to your point, Josh, if you do that like CPR training and people feel empowered, it's like, oh, this is just part of my job. I just do this kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, it's just being empowered in the situation. It's tricky in the States because everyone wants to sue everyone for
Yeah.
everything. So there's all this liability shit. So you do have to be aware of that. But I think there's also like an ethical principle of acting from love and helping, not from fear. So there's,
Right.
it's like cover your butts, but it's why having the plan and having the clarity for it and knowing what that is so important. The other two things that I've experienced at studios that I feel like people aren't prepared for is severe cramping, like when people go
Mm.
into cramp
Oh,
lockdown.
we saw that a ton of in Hong Kong. We call it the claw when they would like go the claw
Right,
hand. Yeah.
right, because they're already coming in dehydrated and low electrolyte balance, and then they do a hard class. And I've seen it in, this is not specific to hot yoga. This
Yeah.
happens in other fitness as well, and it
Yeah.
happens in regular
It can happen at the
regular
gym.
yoga,
It can
right?
happen at the gym.
Yeah. And then the other one is as soon as you have any food or drink of any sort, having an EpiPen. And
Mm.
that's a rare one, but like an EpiPen takes a situation that could be life-threatening to making it not a big deal, basically. Not I'm exaggerating here, but like
Right.
just like it simplifies the situation so fucking much to just have one there in your medical kit. And then the AD is the other one that like that one is a little tricky because you really do have to have really good training on how to use it. Because under the scenario, I've had to use one, and when you pull it out and you're under the
Stress.
duress of the situation, you're like, "Fuck, what do I do?" Like it's, and the instructions don't look real clear all of a sudden, you know. So you do have to be well trained on it and understand when to use it. But that one I feel like is maybe that would be the last one I would add. Fire extinguishers are number one,
Yeah.
EpiPen number two, and the claw thing, that's like electrolytes and sugar balance at
Yeah.
speed. Yeah.
Coca-Cola. Have a Coke on hand.
In a small in the simple way, yeah.
Well, no,
We
I
had
remember.
the worst scenario we had in our studio was um this woman who was old, very broken body from her history, and pretty extremely diabetic. Also practiced a lot. Now she knew how to manage it, and she had sort of special reign of needing to do things in or leaving the class or whatever else to manage it. But one time, only once, she she her blood sugar got too low at the end of class, and she went into low blood sugar. It's like this weird. You're not exactly passed out, but you're not conscious.
Yeah.
Like
It's a weird, yeah, it's a
that.
Twilight Zone.
Yeah, that was the only scary thing that ever happened to us. But everyone knew that who she was and what was going on because she filled out her emergency contact and medical information. We had all the equipment necessary, and the team
Knew what to do.
judged it right quickly and knew what to do, which was just call 911 and then keep her safe. And she was fine. Like it all worked out. But just yeah, that was a good tester.
Yeah. So here's a good one. And this actually happened to me at my studio. What happens when you pass out?
Yeah.
I
Well,
passed out. I passed
don't
out.
pass out.
Yeah, I know I did. I passed out teaching
But
one.
yeah,
I passed out
yeah.
teaching one time. And I woke up staring at the ceiling in the hot room with my feet up on a like fortunately the people in the room knew what to do. They called 911. They went and grabbed a coconut water out of the refrigerator. And I was fine. It was just a long day. I traveled the day before. It was hot, it was humid, but yeah, that was an interesting experience, passing out at your own
Mm,
studio. And then
yeah.
I ended up, I was still teaching. We had just about, I passed out right as we hit toe stand, for those in the Bikram world, right before Savasana. So as soon as I came to, I said, okay, got him in Savasana. And I'm like, I kept teaching, right? I went to the door when the EMTs arrived, I went to the door and to the hot room, and they're in the lobby taking my vitals, and I'm still teaching the class from the doorway. All right, turn around, lie on your back, Savasana.
Wheeling Terry.
Anyway, that was sort of a funny experience. Funny, yeah.
Yeah, you know what though? That actually raises a good point that when we're talking about what's your protocol for emergency situations, blah blah blah, like there are the case at studios where you're the teacher by yourself, you check the class in, the class is going on, and like you're totally on your own.
Yeah,
So that's another scenario of like, what do you do if
yeah,
something goes sideways? What do you do if you have a problem? Like in an ideal world, you'd identify that you're passing out and do something about it ahead of time. That's not always possible. But Like have a plan in place for those scenarios as well. I
And
think that the most important thing in my mind is just that this is a way to empower your whole team in business because it shows a level of professionalism and understanding about the severity of the situation. It's not the nature of your yoga classes that causes this, it's the nature of the business with so many people that this is a realistic potential risk that exists.
yeah,
And at the risk of talking some real shit, like it's one of the things that I've found frustrating as a studio owner was when other places clearly didn't have a plan and had the teacher, whoever there, that clearly had no fucking clue what to do. Like that, because that was a thing, and it's not shade on them specifically, but it did irk me that I've been in a class where I'm just there practicing, and something happens, and they have no
no
plan,
idea.
they have no clue what to do, they don't understand what's happening. And of course, I'll step in and help, but it's just, I don't know. That seems silly from a professionalism standpoint when that same place would market themselves as experts in whatever the classes that they're offering. Are you an expert if you can't deal with, you know, a student passing outy in class or whatever? I don't know.
It's like everything. Have a plan, train the team, and so everybody knows what to do. It's pretty much the mantra for your business.
Well, it's a good segue to the next subject matter here. I mean, first off, avoid these things from happening by having a pre-plan for how to, you know, help people understand what to do. And then when things are unavoidable, be prepared for
Yeah.
the solution to it. Here's the thought. there No one has ever won any wars by accurately figuring out where to place the blame. The other way to say this is, I know it's a little weird. The other way to say this is focus on the solution. Oh, look, thumbs up. I didn't even mean to do that. I don't know how that happens. Focus on the solution, not the problem. Now, we've all heard that before, but the what I'm suggesting here, and this has some context in a second, is it's a common thing that we experience where owners and managers, especially, but actually the whole team, are able to hyper focus on the symptom or problem that they're experiencing. It's usually the symptom, actually, not the problem.
Not the problem. Yeah.
And then they spend a lot of effort, for the simplest way to say it is like bitching about it. And then also like trying to find fault, find blame, and be like, well, this is because of this, and why can't that? And complaining in that area. And there's like a significant amount of energy that goes towards that. And all of that energy is wasted because it's one of these things like you can't change some stuff that happens. So what's the good in doing that? It's totally pointless. As opposed to you could direct all that energy towards what's the solution that you need right now.
Yep.
And I think this is a trait of really strong leaders in a business as well, is being able to see, okay, here's a symptom. I've clearly identified this is the actual problem. And if someone is at fault, we'll have that discussion at the appropriate time. But first and foremost, let's be solution based and figure out how to fucking solve this and just focus there. And everyone then can come together on it. The example of why this is coming up for me is the example is with this click to cancel stuff that we've been talking about. It's coming into effect April 1st. Click to cancel meaning, for those of you who missed last week's episode and the video I posted and stuff, if you have to allow someone the ability to exit your membership just as easily as they can get onto it. So I can go to your website, click a button, and sign up for membership. I need to be able to go to your website, click a button, and get off of the membership, basically. That comes nationally in the United States from the FTC into play April 1st. And then some states,
Unless it's disbanded by then.
well, it's being challenged right now. There are a couple lawsuits against it, so who knows? But I think this is all a positive thing, anyways. There are some states, New York State, this is already in now from the state level, and there are other states who are going to be launching like stricter rules than this around it as well. I think California will probably do it too. So it's a fascinating thing. We can talk about that more in a second. But the point here would be what's happened is the burden is on the small business to facilitate this happening. But the SaaS companies that we operate through, they also are on their heels because now they have to develop something to make this happen. And there's a very, like, this is a short window. This is only officially announced start of the year. And to develop a new feature in less than a quarter to its fullest possible development place is a hard thing to do. So the conversation has come up, and it's a valid conversation that Walla recently launched their click to cancel. There's some other platforms too that are like reiterating or adding theirs. I know Fit Degree's got their thing coming up and stuff. And the V1 of it is causing problems because it's not a perfect solution. It's just a band-aid. It's just a band-aid solution. So it's just, this is not to make excuse for any SaaS companies, because honestly, like, they have to get their shit together too. And this is a really easy example in my mind of like, where are you applying your energy and focus? Is it on a solution to a problem, or is it just in the complaining side, like the placing the blame? We're getting a little bit of that feedback from studios, and it's interesting. So I don't know, Carol, what do you think? I've rambled long enough.
I don't know. I think that you take what you have, the tools you have, and make the best of it, right, in the moment. And so, in this case, if Walla is what we're talking about here, the click to cancel isn't perfect. Well, what can we? I mean, you just do what you can, right? You find the best solution for right now. And I know it's kind of a pain in the ass. If they change it in 2 months, it's going to be a different maybe SOP that you have to write, or you have to train your staff in a different way. That's just business, right? You're in a small business, you got to run it and do the best you can with what you have. So I don't know. Complaining, if you want to complain, give it like 5 minutes of complaining and then move on.
Yeah.
Get to it.
I like that. I like the venting step. Like, it's good to like get it out and be like, fuck this. Like, what's going on here? And then get to your shit. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. I just pulled up as I just like I Googled it. It's the Internet and Television Associate, the National Internet and Television Association is the one, and other stakeholders are filing this lawsuit. And what's really interesting is they're saying that it's businesses are advice. Well, hold on, where is it? I was just reading this. Oh, according to the NCTA, the rules' stringent requirements may conflict with industry practices where retention offers and customer engagement through personalized support are key. The lawsuit highlights concerns that the law would impose unwarranted costs on businesses and could potentially lead to decreased customer satisfaction by reducing opportunities for tailored retention efforts. In other words, they want to hold people hostage longer. That's what it's about.
Well, it's funny how that's so eloquently worded.
Right.
It's describing on the yoga studio level, or on the wellness studio level, what we're talking about is, I want to talk to you on the phone when you cancel because I want to try to save you and I want to figure out what's going on. And I view that as good customer service. That's all potentially true. Like, that's a pretty valid viewpoint.
And you could still do that after they cancel.
Well, sure. And it's not that viewpoint isn't valid, but from the customer viewpoint, like, that seems like some bullshit. You would never say like, you have to interview with me to sign up for membership. I mean, maybe you would, but I don't know. The click to cancel detail thing, like, this doesn't scare me for businesses. I don't think it increases cost at all. We've been coaching most of our clients, depending on their team dynamic, towards something like this for years at this point anyways. I personally don't like the idea of the imposition of having to do something by law around these things. But on the other hand, like, and mostly what I mean is, they're gonna go after to make examples of, oh, my camera's doing weird shit.
You're getting intense just because you leaned
There
in.
you go. I'm getting so intense. Okay, let's go back to this and shut that up. The the only thing about this that I that I don't like is that, if you were to get the maximum penalty of $53,000 or whatever it is, and if your state adds anything on that, like you're done. That could just completely fucking close the studio. So, which that's what penalties are supposed to be by not abiding by it. But the reason that is a little bit scary to me is I don't know. This sounds assholey. I'm a little like salty in the industry. We know that across all the studios we work with out there, there are clients who are gonna be dicks about this. They're gonna be like, you didn't about like April 2nd, somebody's gonna complain about a studio. I guarantee it because it's happened every time with everything. The chargeback thing, the just cancel your car, the not abide by the whatever. This just gives more ammunition to that small group of the public. And that's the part that I get a little bit irked about because clearly this is a political play that like it looks good for voters, at least on a
Oh,
state
no,
level.
no,
There's more to it than that, but like on
I
the
don't think
state
this has
level, why would you
anything
do
to do.
this?
No, I'm going to push back, Josh, because I did a lot of reading when it first came out. This is really because of all the complaints the FCC was getting, over a long period. I don't think it's a political thing. I think
Oh,
it's
I mean on the state level. I think
on the
I think
state
the
level.
doubling down on the state level, that's a
Doubling down on the
component.
state level, yeah. But yeah, it really, I mean, I don't know. I just think back to through all the years and different gyms I've been to where you have to go in, you have to sit down, and then they just try to, keep you. Well, what about that? They don't take no for an answer, right? And they're
Mm,
not making sales as a service. They're, it's draconian. And even recently, just trying to get out of a membership was like ridiculous.
yeah.
And it's like in the end, my personal belief, and I posted about this earlier, like maybe it was last week, is that I feel that then the client gets frustrated and they have a bad experience at the end. Maybe they've had a great experience all the time, and then you become jerks about canceling, and now all of a sudden I leave with a completely bitter taste in my mouth and I'm never going to go back. As opposed to make it easy to cancel. I can cancel, still do the follow up. Hey, Sarah, we're so sorry. Is there anything we could do to help? Did you know about this? And then it's more like, oh, wow, I leave with a better taste in my mouth. I'm more excited about it. And then perhaps if something changes, then I'll go back there.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's my rant.
Yeah, I think the point of the like customers going to use this as more leverage. That's not to say that that's inherently negative, that there is a place for them to go and make a complaint and a law in place to protect them. That all makes sense to me. It's just it never ceases to amaze me how completely insane customers can be in any business. Like the most extreme customers, where it's like nothing has really gone wrong and nothing's actually happened, and they just get on their high horse about a specific principle of something. So to your point, what I would echo or what I would add to it, Terry, is just like this is just a good excuse to get your exit funnel, your cancellation funnel, and your customer service components of that super fucking dialed in, incredibly documented, and trained across your team so you know no matter what people go through it, so that like there's nothing you're in a position of power where nothing can happen to you. And ultimately, for the vast majority of people, it's just going to offer great customer service.
And then the other thing too, it doesn't mean that you can't have agreements. Like the click to cancel is if your click to cancel is cancel anytime with X, like they should be able to go in. But if you have a true membership agreement where it's like you're agreeing to be on this membership for 6 months, there's this, there's that, and that, and they've agreed to that, and they try to cancel early, then you can still say you need to honor this agreement. It just means when they get to the point of canceling, they should be able to cancel it easily. It doesn't mean it
Mm,
negates the terms. It just means they should be able to exit. So again, just making sure if you do have a membership that has requirements, that it's very well documented and they know about it. And so as opposed to a lot of clients, it's just like no contract, cancel anytime with X days notice. If you're set up that way, why not make it easy? Click, they're done, as opposed, and then you add them to the funnel. So it's just, there's a distinction. It just has to be easy to cancel. That doesn't mean that you cannot have agreements in place that stipulate
yeah.
certain aspects.
Yeah. The second detail in the law just says that it has to be
Easy.
basically transparent. It
Transparent. Yeah.
has to be readily available, transparent, easy to find. Like there can't be any hidden. You have to have deliberately tried to communicate the conditions of what's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. Carol, I don't know what else.
I feel like we've exhausted this in the last few weeks.
I know. Well, it's top of mind right now.
Yeah, it's that it keeps coming up, right? So here's sort of a little different take that this prompts in my mind. I always think about business transparency, and for a few years we've been talking about this in the YC too, that I think that as a component of business leadership being the most powerful leadership of our time and important leadership of our time, I think that as a component of, where we're seeing this play out is like B Corps, as a structural building methodology in the United States, for example, et cetera. I think that there's a call towards transparency. And my experience has been that transparency only ultimately benefits everyone involved as long as it's within context. That's the only asterisk, is that if something is super transparent and it's out of context, then someone creates their own narrative in their head around what the detail is that they're learning, and that might not be the full story. But the reason I bring this up is that all of this ties to this idea that honesty, which I think everyone would believe is a good ethical business practice, right? And also leadership practice with your team, and you'd expect that from your team. Like that's not even a question that we should be honest with each other. Honesty, in my mind, is telling the truth when you're asked a question. So you answer honestly. Transparency is you telling me about the thing that I don't even know to ask. So as it relates to contracts and agreements with a studio, that's what transparency should look like in my mind, is I'm going to give you, Carol, all of the details associated with our relationship so that we set a clear agreement and expectations. Where this can get twisted is if you don't train your team appropriately and they don't understand the processes that you put in place. It's very common, especially in the yoga world, but I see this in Pilates quite a bit too, where people over-index their conversation in a sales conversation around the terms and conditions and under-index the getting the person to actually be saying, yes, I want to do this. So, and websites are a good example of this. There's a bunch of websites you go to and it's like auto pay membership, and then it's like 10-point font, you get this and this and this, and then it's 15-point font, bold underlined, this huge block of like, must be 3 months of commitment, must give 24 hours. Like, you're to read it how it's written. It's like, you're like, hey, you get all this stuff, and also, you can't cancel unless you send this. Right. So aggressive. So, yes, transparency. I think that there's a sweet spot. There's very few studios that get this right at first. It takes a minute to get it. But I think there's a sweet spot where transparency becomes an empowering factor for your business. It enhances your customer service. It enhances the likeness of your business to your customers without you making it scary, right? Specific example, Carol signing up. I'm like, hey, Carol, we go through the conversation. Based on what you're saying, what most people do is our membership. It's $130 a month, comes with unlimited classes. You also get a buddy pass every month. Zip, Carol said, well, how long do I have to be on the membership? Like, yeah, there's no minimum time frame. If you want to opt out or change it up, you just give us 48 hours notice at any point in time. Well, how do I cancel? Yeah, if you ever do decide that you want to opt out, literally go to the website, bottom of the page, click a link, fill out a form, that's it. So like, it's all there, but I don't need to over-index my conversation to it.
Well, in addition, I know that I've been at on-sites where we've created, like in the welcome, like when somebody becomes a member, there's a little card that they get that will take them to a QR code. Well, there's a QR code on the card that will take them to all about your membership. So instead of like word vomiting everything about the membership and the conversation.
Which
They're
they're not
saying,
going to
Josh,
remember.
they're not going to remember. It's too much information.
Yeah.
All we're trying to do is get them on the right package for themselves, right? For their practice frequency. Then we can take them to that page and it would have, here are the benefits, here are the great things you're going to get. And oh, by the way, if you need to opt out, here's the link. Like it's very straightforward
Yeah.
that way too. So it's another way to get it out there without too much information in that initial conversation.
And part of this too, and I hear, and there is a frustration, is people don't read, and that's there's nothing we can do about that, right? We can over communicate, like to your point, it could be an that hey, oh, I didn't know that. Oh, well, you get an email every time it auto renews. You're getting a purchase receipt. You're getting this. You're getting that. And if people aren't reading, there's nothing we can do about that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the reality of human nature, and I know,
That's a
frustrating.
It's a good point. It's why click to cancel is the new prompt to reevaluate your systems to make them, live up to this expectation, but also to look at the whole thing and just say like, am I doing my due diligence? Am I being transparent? Is this fair? If you check all those boxes, that's 80/20 rule. That's the best you can do. And someone's still gonna fucking charge back. Someone's gonna ask anyways. The one thing that I would say in support of studios and where this frustration, and this is a legitimate frustration, right? Is when someone's asking you a question that is clearly a question that is already answered through policy, right? It's maybe not even that they don't know the answer. It's that think for yourself. Like, if you don't know, if you don't ask, you don't ever get the real answer. I don't give a shit what the policy is. If I want out of it early, I will ask you. I will. That's
Yeah.
just the truth. And I don't mean it offensively. I mean it like, I don't want to pay more because I'm not coming next month. Of course, I'm going to ask you that. That's a normal human thing. So, kind of attaching this to our like focus on the solution, not the problem. Have policy for how you deal with that situation. Let yourself and your team be calm about it. Don't worry about it. You're not gonna, if you've done all the other stuff and you know your due diligence is there, you know it's transparent, you feel very fair about it. Great, check. And then when that comes, that's just human. Don't worry about it. Don't let it phase you, you know?
I'm raising my hand. And you're not calling on me. Okay, I'm going to go anyway. All right. So here's what you said about the
Taryn.
Thank you. All right. So this happens, and like usually what we get, and I know from my experience as when I owned my studio, Carol, I'm sure it was same there, and then from just talking to other studios, usually it comes with they want the refund. I wasn't aware it was a membership. I didn't or they didn't cancel in time, whatever it is, right? And so you're usually looking at the most time you're looking at one payment, one membership payment. Again, to Josh's point, just have a policy. It's like empower. I just had this conversation with a client the other day. It's like empower your desk staff. If it's just one payment and they feel it's the right thing to do, say, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and refund that for you. They don't have to check with anybody. Just give them that power to say they can refund. Wait, put that hand down. I have more to say on this. And give them that. Now, here's the thing is that, and this has happened where all of a sudden somebody hasn't been coming and it's been billing, and now they want $1,500. They want 8 months charge. They want 8 months refunding because they didn't realize, or they thought they canceled and they didn't. Now okay. Whose fault is that? That they went 8 months being charged. One would think, oh, it's the clients. And let's look at this from a different perspective. Why didn't you reach out to them? Right? This can go to what I listed the other day, things the front desk can do on shift. Let's look at reports and, okay, Carol hasn't been in 3 weeks or 4 weeks. She hasn't been in a month. Why are we not reaching out to someone like Carol as a member and saying, hey, Carol, we noticed you haven't been in the studio. Is everything okay? And there's like, oh, shoot, I thought I canceled it. Then you're dealing with 1 month of maybe negotiation as opposed to 8 months or more. So I would put back on as part of your process is, are you checking in with the members? Or are you just letting, I mean, if so that you never get in that position. And if I can hear people say, oh, but man, that's a lot of work and we have a lot of members. Okay, then hire a membership coordinator as a seat. You pay someone, that's their job, is that's what they specifically do, is they're dealing with anything related to membership. And
Mm.
that can be a seat in your organization. If either a teacher or someone on staff wants more hours, that could be, and depending on how big your studio is, that potentially could be almost a full-time job, right? If you have a lot of
Well,
members.
and if your whole business is based on membership,
Membership.
like why would that not be a seat in your business? You're
Yeah,
going to have to manage that stuff anyways.
yeah.
So
So
have someone become the pro at it. That is a good potential seat in a studio. It's not always necessary. I think you can have a front desk team that handles it,
yeah,
but
I
it's
think
not a bad idea. There is a place for that too. Yeah.
totally. I think when you there, I think there's a scale issue. I think in the beginning, things like that, when your studio is smaller, doesn't have as many members, but particularly if you have a couple of rooms or you have multiple locations and you're now talking 6, 7, 800 or more members, then potentially it's like, yeah, that would be a powerful place to have. And then even with a couple of hundred members, having someone that spends 5 hours a week.
Yeah. I think the one thing I'd go back to in the beginning, Terry, with this like empower your desk to refunds, because I agree that that is a potential policy and empowerment for your team. The only thing I would say slightly counter to that is just that like especially at on-sites, what we find is the team is so scared of confrontation. Like the front desk is and teachers are so terrified of someone looking at them like they're a butthead by them exuding a policy that they bend rules all fucking over the place all the time and don't even tell the owner. The owner doesn't even know. We find it. That happens a lot. So we're like, is even the last couple on sites, right? We're asking the question like, well, okay, we just saw this happen like this. Like, is that the official? I don't care, but like, is that the official policy? That seems a little interesting to me. And they're like, no, I've specifically said that's not supposed to happen, or I had no idea that's happening. That happens all the time. So the lack of you creating and implementing policy with your team, they'll start solving these problems on their
Make
own,
the
and it might not be in the way that you want. So, anyways, from that context, all I would say is I think that there is value in being able to stand your ground too. The whole like just the customer's always right, just give them whatever they want. That doesn't feel as empowering ultimately for you or for the customer, in my opinion, anymore. There was kind of a moment where that seemed to be more the case. And so the way that I would maybe add on to that policy is have an escalation tactic. Have like this is response one in this scenario. Here's what it can escalate to if necessary, and here's the final like most generous escalation. The example would be if someone came to me and actually said like I want a refund because I haven't been in 2 months or whatever. The first answer is no if we have a no refund policy. Be like, hey, we actually don't do that. Like, let's talk through what's going on. Like, oh no, I'm sorry for any confusion here. Let's see what's going on. What can I do here? And so step one would be like, hey, here's what I can do. We'll make sure no more payments come out. You've got 2 months of yoga. They're sitting on your account. You can use them or give them to someone else anytime. They're just sitting there. Like that would be, in my mind, step one. If they're going to fight on that and you can see that they're disgruntled, then you could try to go to step two, which would be, okay, you know what? I'll make it, I'll let me get approval and I'll refund this money or whatever. Step three would be if you know that something went sideways, and especially if you or your team fucked up somehow, because sometimes you make mistakes, that's just what happens, and it was a screw up on your account, then go above and beyond. Let me refund this for you, and I'm going to give you a month on your account without them even asking. Like, take the control back of like totally empower yourself by giving over the top customer service. In my mind, something along those lines where it's like you can show your team and your policy that you're willing to be generous when it's necessary, but I would be just ever so slightly reluctant across the whole team to send the message that policies are endlessly flexible because it gets abused. Here's, I know I've talked a lot on this, but like the other thing that we've seen, I saw this just recently. You've got the front desk manager. Someone comes in and said something about like, oh, I tried to cancel my class, but it, whatever, and then I got charged $20 for not showing up. And they're kind of complaining about that. And without them asking a question, without them anything, the manager says, oh, yeah, you know what? We can be flexible on that. You don't need to pay that. Let me refund it onto your account. Like just right away. And that's that fear of conflict thing. The person didn't even ask for the refund of the $20. That question didn't even happen. So that's where this like flexible policy thing, that was a policy. They were allowed to do that, but there was no attempt to adhere to the policy. So like you got to think of what that tells that person. It tells that person our late canceled time frame doesn't mean shit. And if you don't show up, it doesn't mean shit. We're just going to refund it anyways.
Yeah. They didn't even say so. And that goes to, yeah, that's why, what was I going to say? Oh, never mind. Strike that.
X it out.
Exit out.
I'm going to let you guys finish this. I've got to jump to my next meeting.
All right, bye.
Peace.
I don't care.
It just goes to like transparency and clarity with your team too, right?
Yeah,
so
100%.
as much as you need that with your policies with your students, yeah, having that with your team is super important as well. I mean, we had a like for our desk team, you are not allowed to do refunds. Like this was an escalation process. But we had, if it wasn't me, then I trained the one person that would go to, the requests would go to that person and then they would, respond kind of like Josh was saying, like the first response was this, the next thing was that. And yeah, but as far as, yeah, but everybody knew. Right. So at the front desk, like they could be like, that's not something I can do, but you can contact, send an email with this information to this person. And, it's like, then they
knew what to say. They knew what they just didn't stand there like deer in the headlights going, right. Well, it's like this is what we can do. And I like what you said, having that escalate. It's like this, and I love it's like, well, I'm not able to do this. And this is a nice thing to do in certain policies is we're not able to do this. We can do this. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. So that's another, can be a good thing. It's like, well, our policy is we don't give refunds. However, we can do this. And I did this a lot. Like if their membership billed and like, oh, I forgot to cancel or whatever, I would say, well, tell you what, our policies, we don't give refunds. However, I can apply that to a 10-pack and just charge you the difference. And they'd be like, oh my gosh, that would be great. Right. Yeah. So sometimes, and I would even do that. Let's say someone canceled and I would look, I would cancel their membership and I would look and see that they'd only come like twice in the previous month. And this was I got a lot of good response from this. It's like, hey, Carol, yeah, I went ahead and canceled your membership. Hey, I also noticed that you only came twice last month. And so obviously you didn't get a full month. I said, if you'd like, I can take that. If you would like to, I can charge you just the difference between your membership and our 10-pack and apply those two classes. And then you could have 8 more. And a lot of people, oh my gosh, Terry, that would be so great. Right. So
back to being solution oriented instead of like complaining about like this person canceling. Yeah.
They canceled, but I still, I even recognized rather than charging whatever it was, the full amount for the 10-pack, I applied their which was only $99, that money to the 10-pack. So then they felt really good. It's like, wow, I didn't lose a whole month. I didn't pay basically $50 a class. Yeah. Right. And so that created a feeling of goodwill there. So there's a lot of things you can do. Like you said, it's like our policy is this, but this is what we can do.
I was willing to get creative, but also felt fair on both sides. Yeah. Because like if you let your membership go for 8 months and I've been sending you a reminder email that you've been charged for 8 months, I'm kind of like, I love what you're saying, and like having somebody to check that would be a great addition to a studio's, SOPs and
Yeah.
procedures. But in that case, it's like, how am I supposed to know?
Right.
So we would get pretty creative sometimes, and I didn't want them to leave with a bad taste in their mouth. But also when the customer isn't always right,
Whoever
but
said
I
that should be
can.
shot. I always used to say that. Whoever came up with that expression should be shot.
I don't disagree. Maybe just take off a toe or something. You don't have to be gone forever. I don't know what I'm saying. Anyway, but yeah, just kind of like find something that works for both sides and seems fair, and that might get them on to coming back.
I know for me that I don't know about what your expiration was on like your 10 pack. And because my personal opinion of 10 packs, I say this all the time, is 10 packs are basically discounts on drop-ins.
Yeah.
Right. In fact, years and years, I mean, like this is way back, even before early days. I mean, long before I became a coach. There was a studio out in the San Francisco Bay Area. Their drop-in was $15 and their 10 pack was $150.
Yeah.
I thought at first I thought, oh, I said, actually, that is kind of brilliant. You're just pre-buying drop-ins. So anyway, I used to get initially my 10 pack was expiration of 6 months. And I get a lot of people, and our policies, we didn't roll over or whatever it was. Like, oh, I didn't get, what can you do? And then I was like, okay, well, my initial policy was, well, if you buy another 10 pack, we'll add on the ones that expired. And then I would get to another 6 months because then I came to me, well, if someone wasn't able to use 10 classes in 6 months, now they've got 15 classes to use in 6 months. And then it just perpetuated. So one thing I did that just effectively eliminated it, I changed the expiration to a year.
Well, I mean, that's what if they don't use them in a year?
Well,
Like,
I can tell you that for at least in my studio, the percentage of people that I was dealing with went from a lot. Obviously, I don't have exact quantitative numbers after 5 years, but I can tell you that it went significantly down. And then what we would do in that case, we're looking at I would say, then the policy was, we will give you a one-time 1 month extension to use the classes left. And after that, they were gone. But I can say, I just remember that once I changed the expiration from 6 months to a year, there were far fewer people that's like, they ran out. It expired with classes on it too. So and I coach all, I'm like, change your 10 pack to 6 months. I mean, to 1 year,
Yeah.
and like I had a client that had a 20 pack in 3 months. I'm like, why?
Yeah.
So it's like, if somebody's using 20 classes in 3 months, why aren't they on your membership?
Mhm.
And then this is where pricing becomes a strategy.
Yes. Yeah. Nothing to add to that. It is a strategy. It's a super important part of your studio's strategy and selling memberships and getting people on the right packages. Yeah, I like that. I mean, I typically coach to like, you can choose if you have 6 months already for your 10 class card and you don't have any issues, you can leave it that way. But some people go up to a year, just sort of wherever that is. So
I just do a year. It's less than twice a month. Just remove that, and don't make it we see this a lot, Carol. I'm sure you've seen this, is where like when you do the math, the 10 pack is like the best value.
yeah, no. Like you said, it's like a slight discount off of your drop-in. That's all this should be. And they don't get any perks. They don't get any fanfare. It's like, you just get these 10 classes.
You get these 10 classes, you get a little bit of a deal. We love to see you. You're treated like everybody else. It's just like, here, because I had clients that did, well, this is where if you have people that come once a week, where you have like an auto renew pack.
Mhm.
That's where that is a great thing. Because I know, I'm sure you can think of clients now at the studio, where you owned and now teach and practices. I mean, I had clients that came every week, once a week, every week. Because I've talked about this before, they use Bikram yoga as their active recovery day from their other thing. And they typically were like a Saturday or Sunday or a Wednesday morning, whatever it was. So we want to make sure we have those solutions for that type of customer. Just like the person that comes every day, twice a day, which I'm sure we all have those. I can still think of mine I still remember her all these years later. Her average revenue per visit was $3.50.
I've been doing a lot of pricing, audits with clients recently, just in the last couple of weeks. And we talk about in our coaching, like those are the people that stand out. And those are often the times the people that we're trying to price for. But when you look at the average number of visits for an average visitor,
exactly.
It's like 6.5 times, it's not that often. So, we have to remember that the majority of people are not getting their classes for $2.50.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. Or I will say that this woman, her name is Leslie. While her cost per class was really low, she was a top dollar client because she bought a shit ton of retail. She went to every workshop we did. So her overall LTV, lifetime value, was really high. It's just her membership. She definitely got her use of her membership. But I sold weigh mats at my studio because a hot studio. I think by the time she had like, I kid you not, 10 weigh mats.
I remember you saying she'd coordinate her outfits.
Coordinate her outfit with her weigh mat. So she had the weigh mats in practically every color. And because she came to practically 2 classes a day, she bought a ton of yoga, retail yoga clothes for me because she had all these outfits. She loved the swag. She bought every time I got new swag in, she would buy the swag. So sometimes when you're looking at those folks, those high volume users oftentimes can be your best like retail customers. Like I had this one dude, he came a lot. He was a dude, so he bought one yoga mat, one pair of shorts that were probably good. He's probably still using them 5 years later, right? However, he bought a drink every single day, and not just the water. He bought more like my $3 water or $3 whatever it was every single day. He spent like $1,000 a year in beverages. And I made a shit ton of profit on beverages, right? So gotta look at different things. And thinking of, I was just talking about this the other day. Somebody challenged me one time about why they didn't have, this is well before I sold my studio, that they didn't have they didn't sell annual memberships because they don't make any money off of annual members because they have the least amount of revenue per class. And I'm like, and at that point I had like 80 annual members. And I went, wait, so in Mind, but one of the things, again, I do like about Mind Body is you can get very detailed reporting. And there is a report in Mind Body called Average Revenue Analysis. And I think Walla has not 100% similar, but something. But anywho, you could see based on pricing option what the average revenue is per pricing option, as well as the blended average for like all your yoga classes. It turned out I made more money on my per visit on my annual members on average than I did on my monthly members. Right. And I don't know about you can you see that, Carol?
I can see that because like maybe you're really excited in the beginning, you plunk down that big chunk of money on the annual, and then you're not seeing that monthly charge. And so by like month 6, 7, if you only come a couple times a month, I mean, hopefully you're dedicated and you feel like you want to come because of how good it makes you feel. But I could see that actually happening, like almost like a less of an incentive because you're not seeing the monthly charge.
There's definitely that. I hadn't never even thought about that, but I'm sure that's part of the reality. But some of it is sometimes the monthly people, they just wanted to be one and done. It's just like, they were just like, I'm one and done. I just don't want to think about it. Yeah. And, so I would have annual members like in New England and where I lived, everybody wanted to go to Cape Cod for, everybody had they either went south to Cape Cod or north to Lake Winnipesaukee in New Hampshire. They either had whatever, they would be gone for a lot through the summer, blah, blah, blah. And they wouldn't worry about it because it's like they came enough the rest of the year to make up for it, da 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 da. And yeah, so it's just really interesting. Like I made way more, not just a little bit more, like a couple of like $2 more per class off of annual than monthly. So yeah, so it always is very interesting when you look at stuff like that. So
Well,
yeah,
that's why numbers, we kind of assume or feel that things are happening. But when you can actually look in the numbers and see truly what's happening, it can be eye-opening.
yeah.
So I love that you did that to just, I'm curious. I'm going to check it out and
Yeah,
got into the
I'm gonna
numbers.
check it out. I'm gonna go look in and see. And, I mean, obviously 10 packs are easy. That's how much you make per visit, right? Certain packages, this is a card, you know exactly. But when the unlimited ones, it's like it is interesting. It's interesting to see, what the average, and I mean, if you don't have the capacity in your software, you can get an average visit quite simply by taking, most softwares will give you your total number of visits, and most softwares will give you your total number of unique visits. And just divide your unique visits by your total visits, and that's the average visit per client. I mean, that's the simple math on that.
Unique clients, right?
Unique
Yeah, I
clients.
guess, yeah, yeah.
And then, so you've got your total visits, because I went through this yesterday with a newer client. It was like, sometimes it's like, what's total visits versus unique visits? What does that mean? So I like to say, describe it as total visits is the number of spots you sold in the room. It's your inventory. Because if you think about it, distill it down, a spot in your room is inventory. And that's what actually, this is what ClassPass says. It's like those are inventory spots. And their whole thing is we're selling unused inventory at a discount to get people into your room. But so if you have 40 capacity, right, that's your inventory per class. So you have 40 spots. So in a given month, maybe you have 675 spots sold. That means there are 675 of those spots sold. Unique clients is of those 670 spots sold, they were purchased by 250 individuals. That's the unique clients. And then you would just take the 250 divided by the 6, whatever it is, and then that's going to give you the average visits per client. And yes, that includes drop-ins and guest passes and buddy passes and class pass and all that stuff. However, I mean, those are all visits, right? So they should count in that calculation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a good measure is if members are using their membership, ideally 4 to 6 visits per month should be the average, is what we see in KPIs. Like if your average visits per client are like 2.5, that means you you either don't have a lot of memberships, or B, your members aren't using their membership. What do you think about that? Just sort of broad sweeping generalization, Carol, with what you see.
Are you talking about members on both, let's say, an unlimited and no, you're talking about all.
I'm talking about like
Yeah, it's
yes, if you visualize our KPI spreadsheet, the one we use,
mhm,
it's like at
yeah.
the top portion, it's like, what is it? It's a total attendance, unique and new.
All
And then,
students, yeah. So then all students rather than members.
Yeah,
I just get really like members meaning like, are you on a membership?
yeah.
So if it's just students in general, yeah, I'd say
Yeah.
that's about what we see
Yeah,
for
if they're in if you're in that 4 to 6 sweet spot, if you're in like that 4 to 6 average visits per client, not per member, per client,
Mhm.
then what I see in KPIs is that's a real robust, you got people are using their memberships, they're coming in, and you have perhaps a lot of people on membership, as opposed to when we see like in the 2 to 3 visits per month. Then typically what I see in KPIs is like either they don't have a lot of memberships, and or B, that people on membership are not using their membership, or they're not converting like guest passes and drop-ins and things like that to another package.
Yeah.
So,
Or maybe they are selling a ton of 10 class
or
cards.
maybe they're selling a ton of 10 packs. So this is why Josh did a thing he posted in the Facebook group about KPIs the other day. And I always say, like, always say numbers don't lie, KPIs don't lie. And so many of you know my story about KPIs. It's just that I love to look at KPIs now and look at it from what is the story that the KPIs are telling you. And then based on that story, based on those numbers, and Carol and I look at this all day long, is like, what can we do to either make that story better, right? Or, you know what? This story is not going to have a happy ending. We need to start creating another happy ending for this story.
Mhm.
We got to make sure that grandma's not gobbled up by the wolf.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Just there's a quote that's coming to my mind. It's not fully
Fully there.
fleshed out, but it has to do with like you're gonna read the same story until you turn the page, right? So it's
Yes.
the gist of it.
Yeah, I like that.
So we need to turn the page and just find those opportunities. I think that's what the numbers tell us most are like, where is the biggest gap, which means there's a big opportunity for you
Yeah.
to improve your numbers.
Yeah, and I've said this a million times. It's like sometimes studios think, oh, I need to get more people in the door. And the reality is when you look at the numbers, no, they don't need more people in the door. They need to convert more people to their goal offer. It's not like they're getting plenty of people in the door. They just aren't converting them. As opposed to, you're doing a great job of conversion. Now we need to turn up the volume and get more people in the door. So that's where, again, knowing your numbers and knowing your KPIs and knowing some of those basic ones help you make informed decisions about your business, which is why with the summit, when we do our annual visionary summit, we always start with the client, the participants and their KPIs, and we talk about KPIs. And that's like, okay, this is what tells us where the decisions are and where you should be focusing your time and energy in the coming year. As opposed to, you may think it's one thing, but like, your numbers are telling you a different story. Yeah. And wow. So we've kind of just gone all over the map. So before we log off or wrap up today, we do have our core values workshop is coming up in like an hour and 15 minutes. If you're interested in it, it is still not too late to sign up. You can message us if you're if you're watching this in real time, you can message me. If you're in Slack, you can message me in Slack, or you can send me an email, terry@the-yc.com, and we can get you connected so you can be on that workshop. It's not too late. And if you're interested and you don't think you can make it, if you sign up for it, you will get access to the recording and anything after that. So just want to make one final little push for our core values workshop, which can really help you make an informed decisions about your business. And again, tying into when everybody's aligned, it makes it so much easier when you have these policies. And that's a good one. Like, are your policies in line with your core vision? Do you have a core vision? Do you have your core values? And that's where all of this sort of weaves together. All right, Racy. Well, thanks, Carol. It's always fun hanging out with you. And we will see you hopefully at the Core Values Workshop, or we'll see you in the YC